in 94, he died in April of 94. In early 94, he went on a trip to Russia. And his philosophy at the time was communism has lost in Russia, but democracy has not yet won. Things were in the balance. And I know that Colonel Hauenstein was part of the team that you supervised the first elections in Russia back then. You were involved in the same battle. Would Russia go back to its imperialistic, autocratic past under czars? Had never really known democracy. Or could we have an impact on them? Could the Russian people assert themselves and Russia become a real democracy? Well, you know, that's still in question with Putin. It's still an open question now. But in that process, he went to Russia, came back. He wasn't back more than a day, and I was with him in his library. Guess who called? President Clinton. What's going on in Russia? I heard President Nixon's side of the conversation, and soon thereafter you could see Clinton's Russian policy make a U-turn and start going in the direction that President Nixon said it should go. So that was a man of thought, and through his thoughts and his ability to express them, having an impact on what was going on in the world. I'd like to share with you some of the more interesting, significant, or amusing moments that I had in the White House and thereafter with the former president. Of course, there was the wedding in 1971. It was a beautiful wedding. You know, when you're in the White House, your life doesn't belong to you, and you have to understand that. You're very privileged to be there. It's the president's house, but it's the people's house. And so when there's something like that, yes, we could have gone off and enjoyed just our friends and been married, a place for everyone. But we were married in the White House with a small group joining in, about 60 million people. But we shared it with the people of the United States because it was something important about weddings and the White House that had to be shared with the people of the country. Mrs. Nixon, there was a wonderful, wonderful lady, a wonderful mother-in-law, a great lady in her own right. Mr. Nixon never would have been able to do all the things he did without her by his side. She and Tricia put together a beautiful American wedding, not like the grandeur of the British wedding, but it's a beautiful wedding. I did my job. It's very simple. I showed up on time, dressed properly. Then there was a 72 convention. Mr. Nixon was I was in an anteroom outside of where he was, door closed, putting the final touches on his acceptance speech, not to be disturbed. Mrs. Nixon, Tricia, and Julie were changing. I was there alone. The phone rings. I pick it up. It's Senator Dole, chairman of the Republican Party, who's running the convention, said, "We got a problem." You know, there was this group called Young People for the President. It was a large group, enthusiastic young people. I know the group well. I'd spoken to them, and they were having a wonderful time putting sort of a young energy into what otherwise might have been a boring convention. And the question was this: should they be permitted to sit in the aisles and come in as they wanted to and participate in the acceptance speech? And Senator Dole, Chairman Dole's issue was, would they be so enthusiastic that they would, of course, the acceptance speech was meant, yes, for the audience, but more for TV. You're talking to the American people. You're laying out, this is what we're going to campaign on. And wouldn't these young people in their enthusiasm break the cadence of the speech, go on too long, make the speech go on too long, all the things that could go wrong simply because you had these enthusiastic young people in the aisle. The decision had to be made right there. There I am. Dole's on the line. Mr. Nixon's there, not to be disturbed. No one else there. What do you do? Well, yes, Senator, go ahead. And Mr. Nixon, then we went on to the convention hall. He gets up there and he starts his acceptance speech, and he hits his first applause line, and I'm beginning to sweat. And the young people start applauding, and then he goes on, and they stopped. Those small things happen, and you play a small role in how things progress.